Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome to our post-documentary reaction. This is going to be a chill stream, inshallah. We're going to just be discussing the Wahhabi documentary that was just released last week. Hopefully you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, make sure to go watch it. We're going to be giving thoughts, reactions, looking at the live chat, looking at your comments, talking about the making of the documentary and what led to it. So this should be a fun stream, inshallah, and I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you and enjoying this Monday. So alhamdulillah. I think now we can say alhamdulillah, R.I.P. Wahhabism. R.I.P. Wahhabism, except rest in not peace, but another P word. So that's what a lot of people have been saying, that this is a devastating blow. This is just game over for Wahhabism. And it's funny because it didn't really take much. It doesn't really take much to absolutely destroy Wahhabism. It's just a matter of someone actually doing it. Someone actually putting the material together, lining up all the quotes, lining up all of the historical events with documentation, historical documentation, putting it all there in one place. That is enough to KO Wahhabism. And the reason that it doesn't happen very often is there is this massive amount of political pressure. Massive amount of pressure on anyone who dares criticize Wahhabism. They are pressured not to do it in the first place, and if they do it, then they're going to be attacked online especially, but even offline, with smears that you are a murtad, you are an apostate, you're a deviant at best, you're upon kufr. Just non-stop attacks, non-stop smears to discredit you as a Muslim. They're actually, the Wahhabis will actually question your iman and negate your iman, and then they'll even take the step further and say, well, because you're an apostate, your blood is now halal. We are justified in killing you. That's the kind of response that you can expect if you go the full Monty. If you go full, show the entire picture of what Wahhabism is, that's what you can expect. And that's just from comments. Forget about comments and social pressure. Forget about political pressure. Forget about if you'll be able to go to certain countries. If you do go, will you be safe in certain countries? Can you even go and do Hajj or Umrah? These things are all in the air if you start criticizing Wahhabism. And this is a big deal. If you have a large platform and you're a Muslim da'i, you're a Muslim speaker, do you want to actually do Hajj? Do you actually want to be able to go and do Umrah? Do you actually want to be visiting certain countries and not feel like at any moment you're going to get literally stabbed in the back? This is what's in the back of your mind when you are attacking a very powerful political force known as Wahhabism. So that's why we don't see many of these types of critiques. And there are critiques, there are critiques of Wahhabism in the English language, certainly many in the Arabic language. If you know Arabic, you can watch those as well. When in the English language, what I felt was missing, myself and my team, is that there's not one source that brings together all of these, all of the documentation, all of the quotations, and kind of puts it in one place to really show what Wahhabism actually is about from its source, from Ibn Abdul Wahhab, from his sons, and from his allies and his followers. What is actually Wahhabism? What are their doctrines? Let's go directly to the primary source instead of relying on secondary sources. And that's necessary because there's a massive propaganda campaign. There has been in the 20th century to whitewash Wahhabism. because Wahhabism immediately gained a very bad reputation, as you can imagine. You can watch the documentary to see the kinds of raiding they did, the kind of offensive jihad they did against not only the Ottoman Empire, but even the cities within Najd itself. So they're engaged in war against Muslims. So they developed pretty early on this reputation as being Khawarij, being Khariji, being this violent barbarians, basically. So that reputation had to be scrubbed, and the Saudi state engaged in that scrubbing, that whitewashing. They even stopped using the term Wahhabi to identify themselves. Prior to this whitewashing campaign, this propaganda campaign, they had no problem identifying as Wahhabis. They're proud of it. We're proud of our Sheikh Ibn Abdul Wahhab. But then there was a conscious decision in the early 20th century that no, we need to rebrand, and that's where the term Salafism became popularized. And the person who popularized it to a great extent was Rashid Rida. Rashid Rida, who is the famous student of Muhammad Abdu, the Grand Mufti of Egypt, who was one of the biggest reformers, who introduced a lot of the modern reform that we see today, that we've seen for the past 200 years. It came from Muhammad Abdu, and his student was Rashid Rida, and they adopted Wahhabism for a very specific purpose. I'm not going to go and elaborate all of that. You can just go watch the documentary. You can go to the chapter. Literally, it says, how did Wahhabism become Salafism? So you can go watch that. But the point being that there's this massive whitewashing campaign funded by literally hundreds of millions of dollars over the decades of petrodollars to present Wahhabism as orthodox Islam. Wahhabism is orthodox Islam. What Ibn Abdul Wahhab came with is traditional Hanbali, traditional Athari, Aqidah, and Creed. And Ibn Abdul Wahhab was just a follower of Imam Ahmad, Ibn Hanbal, and Ibn Taymiyyah. This is the hoax. This is the hoax. And that's why you have to go to the primary source. That's why you have to go and read what did Ibn Abdul Wahhab actually say. And not just in Kitab al-Tawheed. Kitab al-Tawheed is the famous work. You have to go and read Kashf Shubahat, for example, and his other letters, his other writings. And then that will give you a true understanding of what Ibn Abdul Wahhab was teaching. And then if you're not satisfied with his words, go to his immediate students. Go to his grandson, one of his closest students. Go to his family of scholars, other Wahhabi shuyukh over time, and see what they say. See what is being said prior to the whitewashing campaign in the 1920s and 1930s, as Wahhabism so slowly starts to shift, as Abdul Aziz ibn Saud starts to realize that Wahhabism is politically incorrect. We can't be card-carrying Wahhabis anymore because our reputation is so bad. And so we have to rebrand. And that's what they did. And yeah, they changed, they modified their views, they kind of watered down their views, and the true Wahhabis weren't in favor of that. The true Wahhabis saying you're watering down. You're telling us that we can't go and raid and kill the mushrikeen, meaning non-Wahhabi Muslims. You're telling us we can't go kill and slaughter these non-Wahhabis and take their wealth and take their women and children? What is this? This is liberal Islam. Not literally. That's not literally what they said, but they lashed out at the Saudi government, and you had the Ikhwan revolt, which again we cover in the documentary, and you have a similar dynamic with ISIS today. There's a similar dynamic with ISIS saying that, no. These other Salafis, they're not the true Salafis. We're the true Salafis. We're the true Wahhabis. We're the true followers of Ibn Abdul Wahhab and the Salaf and the Hanbali school and Ibn Taymiyyah. We're the true followers as ISIS. Daesh or whatever. Dawla. So that's... and they have a point. As I say in the documentary, they have a point. They do have a claim Because when it comes to mass takfiring the ummah and saying that the entire ummah is dar al-kufr, that's what ISIS says. That's what Ibn Abdul Wahhab said and wrote and taught. So they do have a claim there. But it's important to recognize how all of these different groups, which all claim to be Salafi, all claim to be following the Salaf, the true Aqidah of the Salaf, they're all takfiring each other. They're takfiring, they're tabdeeing, they're attacking each other nonstop. And that's one thing that we have to remember. Just delete this. Some of you trying to get the stream taken down, I can tell. But these groups, the Haddadis, the Medkalis, and the Daeshis, the ISIS people, they're constantly takfiring each other, tabdeeing each other. This is not the true Aqidah of the Salaf, etc. The point of this documentary is to show how all of these groups, these cancerous groups, are all on the same understanding deep down. What is the core of this? It's Wahhabism. The core is Wahhabism. And what does that actually mean? What does that entail? Connecting their statements, connecting their behaviors to the actual primary sources of Ibn Abdul Wahhab and his immediate students and followers. So that's, in a nutshell, the purpose of the documentary. And, you know, I also want to talk about the larger context, how the documentary came about, how we created it. Because a lot of people are saying that, oh, this documentary, these Wahhabis are saying, this documentary is too good. It's too well put together. It's too professional. This must be from the CIA. The CIA has made this documentary just to discredit our beloved Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Yeah, I'm sure the CIA is putting a lot of funding towards discrediting the movement that is helping them the most. The ideology that is helping them the most. Why would they do that? They love Wahhabism. Wahhabism is the perfect sect, the perfect ideology in order to discredit Muslims and cause non-stop infighting of Muslims. That's what Wahhabism is. So of course they don't want. Wahhabism is the Medkalism that is defending on a religious basis the ideology of the Gulf states that want to normalize with Israel. Why would we get rid of Wahhabism? So this is, we're going to talk about how the documentary was made as well, inshallah. And we're going to look at some of your comments. So we can look at the super chat to start. Already some of you are putting in super chats. We're going to look at that. If you have a comment that you want me to read and prioritize, then put that in the super chat. But I'll be looking at the regular chat as well. Moderators are saying put in slow mode. Okay, let me just put that on. Give me 1 second. People are spamming the chat. Okay, so I put on slow mode and it's subscribers only now, so no, hopefully less spam, inshallah. Okay, the larger context. Why did we make this documentary? Like, why focus on Wahhabism? Honestly, in the past 8 months, I've learned so much about Wahhabism that I had no clue about. So a lot of you watching the documentary were saying that, wow, I had no clue. This is much worse than I thought. Yeah, I thought that Wahhabis were, you know, let's say a little bit more hardcore. They're a little bit more conservative, and that's not really my vibe, but whatever. They're whatever, just who cares? Just ignore them. But then you watch the statements from Ibn Abdul Wahhab, you see their actions, the jihad that they waged, on the Sunni Muslims, the Ottoman Empire, the massacres that they committed against Shia and Sunnis. And you're like, wow, okay, this is a much, much worse issue than I thought. And that was my reaction as well. That was my response to reading these things, researching these statements. So that's the reaction that many of us have, because again, there's been this whitewashing campaign to hide the truth. And that's why I ultimately decided to go with the title, Uncovering the Hidden Truth on Wahhabism. There were other titles that I was considering, like Wahhabism, Knife in the Back of the Ummah. I thought that was pretty accurate in describing what Wahhabism is, but then ultimately decided against it because maybe it's just it's going to turn off people and they won't even give it a chance. So I decided against that title. Another title was going to be Wahhabism, Purifying Salafism from the Wahhabi Cancer. Purifying Salafism from the Wahhabi Cancer. I ultimately didn't go with that title either because it makes it seem like that Wahhabism is just an issue for Salafism. And I explained in the documentary that criticizing Wahhabism is not to discredit or to attack what I call, conservative Muslims who are Salafi. They self-identify as Salafi, but they are adopting a kind of Salafism that has already been whitewashed, has already been defanged from the Kharijism of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. They just don't know it. So these Salafis need to be red-pilled, not so that they leave Salafism, but so that they stop perpetuating, if they are perpetuating, the takfiri ideology of Wahhabism. The takfirism, the sectarianism that is so destructive. That's ultimately the goal. What I define as a Salafi Muslim is something that has existed for the entirety of Islam. Meaning a Salafi Muslim is a conservative Muslim who is following generally the Aqidah of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, following Hanbali Aqidah or fiqh. That's generally what a Salafi today would be considered. And he doesn't really feel comfortable, or he doesn't do certain practices. Like he doesn't go to Mawlid. He doesn't, do Mawlid type of practices. He doesn't engage in some of the Sufi practices that are found amongst other schools of Aqidah. Even though, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, was part of a Sufi tariqah. I don't know if people are aware of that. And they aren't aware that Ibn Taymiyyah had many views that would be considered Sufi. Imam Ahmad had many views that are considered Sufi. People don't know this necessarily. But when you start finding out these things about Imam Ahmad, about Ibn Taymiyyah, about the Hanbali school, even in Aqidah or fiqh, then you realize that, okay, it's a more complicated picture. This slogan that some Salafis use that, well, we are just following Islam as it was practiced by the Salaf. This slogan, the best way to debunk it is just to show, like, well, what did Imam Ahmad say about tabarruk, about seeking blessings from objects, about the use of amulets, using Quran as an amulet for barakah? What did Ibn Taymiyyah say about this issue and that issue? About, for example, the power of the dead. Ibn Taymiyyah believes that the dead can actually grant you. You make dua, or you do istighatha to the dead, and you make a request of the dead, and they can actually respond. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, actually says. They have the power. He says, we shouldn't do that. That's shirk. It shouldn't be done to make requests from the dead. But they actually do have the power. They have the qudrah to fulfill those requests. Anyway, when you see these different positions from these scholars that are all under the Salafi umbrella, then you realize, and you can't escape the conclusion, that there's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of diverse beliefs. Ibn Taymiyyah, another view of his, that fana nar, that the hellfire will be extinguished. The hellfire is not eternal. There is no eternal hellfire. That's one of the positions that is attributed to Ibn Taymiyyah. So that's not what Imam Ahmad held. And it's question, and which of the Salaf held this view? Ibn Taymiyyah claims that some of the Salaf held this view, but clearly others did not. So there is no like single creed of the Salaf. When you start compiling all of these different views, all of these different positions in Aqidah, in Fiqh, in Usul al-Din, there is a diversity. And when you realize that, then you have the kind of tolerance to say that, well, if the scholars within my school can disagree and there can be ikhtilaf and there can be ijtihad on issues that are aqidah related, then why should I consider the other schools to be Ash'aris, Maturidis? Why should I consider them to be kuffar, non-Muslims? Or why should I consider them to be not on the manhaj of the Salaf? On what basis? If I have that standard, if I were consistent, then I have to say that Ibn Taymiyyah is not on the Aqidah of the Salaf either. Imam Ahmad is not on the Aqidah of the Salaf either. So it's about consistency. It's about having a consistent standard that you apply. But this raises other questions. The question of, well, are we tolerant of every difference of opinion? Are we tolerant of every... Well, then why don't we say that the Mu'tazila are also Ahlul Sunnah, for example? Why not? Why don't we say that the Zaydis or the Ithna Ashari Shia, they're also Ahlul Sunnah. They're also following the Sunnah. Why don't we, if we're going to expand this circle of Ahlul Sunnah to include Atharis and Ash'aris and Maturidis, why can't we expand it further? And this is not something that is just like us thinking about it and speculating. Like, there are scholars who have written about this, who have theorized this, who have discussed this at length and written books about it for 1,000 years. You have Imam Ghazali, you have Ibn Taymiyyah himself, who have written about this, who have theorized, well, what is a principled way? What does Islam say about who can be considered Ahlul Sunnah and who is not? Who's following the Sunnah of the Prophet and who is not? So, inshallah, to give you a sense, we're going to have another video, and we'll see how long it's going to be, whether it can be considered like a documentary length video, that discusses this question about the bounds of tolerance within Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That's something that we're working on. So, but the whole reason that we got into this documentary is, and researching Wahhabism is in the first place, is look at the kind of attitude they've had against Muslims who are just trying to support Palestine. Muslims who are activists advocating for the Palestinian cause. Look at the type of attacks they have received for not having the correct aqidah. I've been one of the biggest victims of this in terms of their non-stop attacks. And you'll recall, what was I mainly focused on since October 7th? What was the main focus? Judaism. How many debates was I having on Judaism? 3. There were 3 debates, required a lot of research, writing, going into the Jewish text, Jewish theology. And that's the best way that I thought MuslimSkeptic can contribute. You know, we have this genocide taking place. We have this threat of Zionism against the Ummah, against the world. What can MuslimSkeptic do? Well, MuslimSkeptic can do research. MuslimSkeptic can do research and can do media. We can put out material. We can do debates. That's the best way that we can contribute and we can make, inshallah, an impact. And then very shortly after that, a campaign against MuslimSkeptic, a campaign against me. What is Daniel's aqidah? What does Daniel believe about istighatha, about the sifat of Allah? Is Daniel really a Hanbali? Is Daniel really an Athari? I don't know. We need to check that. We need to test him. Don't you find it like a very interesting coincidence that I'm in the middle of this, research, debate, campaign against Judaism and Zionism, and then suddenly get broadsided by a bunch of these so-called Salafi du'at speakers that suddenly want to question me on what do you believe on this and that aqidah issue. And we can't take what Daniel says about anything unless he clarifies, unless he comes out and he clarifies his aqidah. What's your aqidah, bro? We can't trust you. We don't know what you have to say about istighatha and tawassul, and if you've read and accept kitab at-tawheed, we can't trust you. And my initial reaction was to say that, these losers, they are going completely against the sunnah. By the way, to interrogate people on these issues, this is contrary to the sunnah, and you have many of the great imams and the salafs who spoke against this kind of aqidah testing because they realized that it's just a form of fitna, it's just a form of attacking other Muslims on issues that aren't actually necessary for your salvation. That's not what my dawah is about. I'm not teaching aqidah. But the attacks kept coming. They kept coming. And then I saw some people who I thought should know better start to question, well, aqidah is the most important thing. So why isn't Daniel clarifying? Why isn't Daniel speaking? So then I realized that, okay, this is no longer a side issue. And I'm not the only person who's getting attacked like this. This is like a coordinated psyop. This is like a coordinated psyop that has been deployed by certain governments in order to discredit anti-Zionism in the Muslim dawah. Don't talk about Zionism. Don't talk about Judaism. Don't talk about liberalism. Don't talk about these issues. The most important thing is aqidah. And if you disagree, then you're a deviant. And you're hiding your aqidah because you're a deviant. And I realized that this is not just me. This is a pattern. This is a pattern that has been used by the Gulf states, by Saudi Arabia, to discredit any type of Islamism in general. Like, look at who are the scholars in jail in Saudi Arabia as we speak. If you look at the individuals who are in jail, they would be considered Salafi. They would be considered Salafi. They would be considered Hanbali, Athari. But they are smeared as being deviant. They are Ikhwani. They believe. And what is the problem with Ikhwan? Ikhwan, which, I can criticize plenty about Ikhwanism. But Ikhwan, the main problem that these Wahhabis have with Ikhwan is that they believe in Islamic government. And Islamic government is not monarchical government, is not having a Gulf monarchy with kings and princes. So that's the problem. That's why those scholars are in jail, not because they're card-carrying Ikhwani, but because they are labeled as such by the Wahhabis. So they put those scholars in jail. So and that's just one example. Many examples within the history of Wahhabism where you attack your political opponents on the basis of aqidah. And if you go to the documentary, you see this is exactly what Ibn Abdul Wahhab did. Ibn Abdul Wahhab was declaring entire cities as kafir, mushrik, murtad. On what basis? Simply because they were not going to come under the wing of Ibn Saud and join his proto-Saudi state. That was the main reason. Ibn Abdul Wahhab just gave a theological justification for jihad against those groups, jihad in quotes, to neutralize them, to bring them to their knees so they would have no choice. And that's the same thing that Saudi does and the Gulf states do to this day. And now they're doing it, using the internet as far as the Western Muslims are concerned. If they could, they would send, they would send soldiers to come and take care of us if they could. Why? And you can see their comments. Our blood is halal. As non-Wahhabis, our blood is halal because we are mushrik. We are mushriks. We would be either killed or we'd be put in prison. Do you have any doubt about that? So when you see that's what's happening, you recognize that Wahhabism is a cancer. Wahhabism is this threat to the ummah. It is a threat to the ability for Muslims to have political sovereignty. Because our strength lies in being together as one ummah. That's our strength. That's why we can have so many numbers, almost 2 billion Muslims in the world, the second largest religion, but we are the biggest victims of genocide, famine, the biggest victims of all kinds of crimes by the enemies of Islam, despite our numbers. How does that happen? How does such a disastrous state happen? And the big part of the equation, other than, love for the dunya and hatred for death, as mentioned in the hadith, al-wahan, as mentioned in the hadith, the other big reason is that we're just so divided. We're just so divided, and we can't come together and ally together, despite differences, despite ikhtilaf, for the purpose of realizing Muslim interests or Islamic interests. That is a huge problem. And we can debate liberalism, we can debate Christianity, we can debate Judaism, we can debate secularism and feminism, but we have to diagnose this problem, debate it, and excise it and destroy it. We have to. That is one of the biggest problems that we are suffering from as an ummah, and I didn't really appreciate it to the full extent before. The post-October 7th, post-Gaza, what's going on in that part of the world, that has brought into high relief the seriousness of this problem of Wahhabism. It is a kind of problem that is contributing literally to the slaughter of 2 million Muslims in Gaza. It's literally enabling that. And then when you look at the history, it enabled the destruction of the Khilafah. Wahhabis were instrumental to the destruction of the Khilafah post-World War I, in World War I and afterwards. Wahhabis were central to it, were instrumental to it. Wahhabis have been instrumental to causing division and weakening the ummah from within. And that makes them the biggest tools for the enemies of Islam. And that doesn't mean that every Wahhabi is an agent, like every Wahhabi is aware that they're being used. That's the thing about any person can be used without knowing it. And the proof that you're being used is you are furthering an agenda for the enemies of Islam in such an obvious and clear way. Look at ISIS. ISIS, when I say that ISIS is a psyop, ISIS are agents, it doesn't mean that every idiot Daeshi moron is aware or is on a payroll with the IDF or with Mossad. That's not the claim. Even though their leaders actually are. But them themselves, a lot of these idiots that you can still find to this day in the comment section, they can't put two and two together that, why, given everything that's happening in the world and the kinds of enemies that Muslims have and the kinds of enemies that Islam has in the world today, why are we so focused on attacking other Muslims? Why are we so focused about attacking, killing, discrediting other Muslims? Why? Is that really the priority? Is that really going to help Islam or the Ummah? And they say, yes, of course it's going to help. And you saw the quotes that we gave from the contemporary ISIS leaders like Zarqawi, that if our first goal or our first mission is to take care of the murtadin, the kafir, who has left Islam. Then we'll go. The only way we can defeat the kafir asli, the Christians and Jews, is first we have to get rid of all these murtadin, and that's literally ISIS's agenda. But that kind of mentality is exactly from Ibn Abdul Wahhab, and it's exactly from the Medkalis, the Haddadis, these online idiot YouTubers. They have exactly the same mentality. The first priority is we have to get rid of these deviants, murtads, kuffar. We have to prove that they're wrong about the sifat of Allah. We have to prove, even though that this is a debate that's been happening for literally 1,000 years, literally 1,300, 1,200 years, there hasn't been a resolution to this. And ulama of utmost piety and knowledge have differed and disagreed on these issues. No. Our priority, we have to debate this right now, and we have to make bara. We have to disassociate from anyone who does not agree with our creed, the creed of the Salaf. It's not just ISIS. It's the Medkalis, it's the Haddadis, it's the Salafi sectarians. So this is a cancer that has to be dealt with. This is a cancer that we have to address just as much as we address liberalism, just as much as we address feminism, just as much as we address secularism, LGBT, whatever, atheism. We have to address this Wahhabi cancer. And that's why, I've dedicated a lot of resources towards it. And some people just didn't understand that. They don't know why. Like, why? You're being distracted, Daniel. This is a distraction. Just ignore them. Just ignore them. Just ignore them. No, you can't ignore them. You can't ignore the history of them, of what they're doing. You can't ignore that. Especially now. Look at what's happening to the Muslim world. Look at what's going to happen in the next month or two if Gaza is completely ethnically cleansed. Israel takes over Gaza. Israel takes over the West Bank. They expel all the Palestinians. All of the regional enemies of Israel have been neutralized or greatly weakened. You no longer have an axis of resistance to counter Israel, because Syria has a new leader now, a new leader that apparently is really strongly considering normalizing with Israel. You have Hezbollah, who has been neutralized. Iran seems like it doesn't want to really continue pursuing escalatory actions against Israel. You have the Houthis, you have Yemen, and they have limited effect. They have a impact, but is it going to really stop the juggernaut? That's the question. So you have a situation where Israel is going to become, if you thought that Zionism was bad before, just wait. Just wait until they finish eliminating Gaza. They finish eliminating Hamas. Just wait to see what Israel is capable of when they can fully dedicate their attention to the rest of the Muslim world, towards the rest of the Middle East. They've already been doing plenty over the past 75 years. And that's when they were under this security threat. They were under some security threat. Once they have defeated that security threat and gained that kind of security stability, then see what's going to happen. Then see what Zionism is going to do. Then see what is going to happen with Wahhabism, what's going to happen with secularization, what's going to happen with feminism. All of these things are going to be surging. Not to mention the actual killing, because you think that they're going to stop in Gaza. No, they've already announced. Smotrich, their finance minister, Ben Gavir, their defense minister, has already announced that we're going to go to Damascus and beyond, from the river to the sea, except Zionist river to the sea. That's their plans. It's just going to be nonstop killing, nonstop occupation, nonstop psyop, like we've never seen before. So, given this historical time period, this historical moment, we need to reflect. How did we get here? How did we arrive at such a low position? So much destruction and death, so much humiliation. Like, how did we arrive here as Muslims, as 2 billion Muslims? There needs to be self-reflection. There needs to be accountability. What have we tolerated? What have we perpetuated? Is Wahhabism really something that we can allow to continue? Is this a type of sectarian ideology that we can allow to continue? Look how much damage it has brought. If you look at 1 century of Wahhabism, since World War I, since 1915, let's say, as an arbitrary start date for this second wave of Wahhabism, 100 years of that. What has it brought? What has it caused? What has it contributed? Our current reality. So we have to identify this cancer. We have to treat this cancer. We have to excise this cancer. And we have to make it taboo. We have to make it taboo. People who want to not be shamed, they have to disavow Ibn Abdul Wahhab. They have to disavow. These quotes that we published in the documentary have to be mass distributed. Every time someone says, oh, our Sheikh Ibn Abdul Wahhab, they have to be confronted with quote after quote after quote. Tell us what you think about this. Tell us, do you agree with this? Do you agree with this approach? Do you agree with the massacre at Ta'if? Not once, but twice. Do you agree with these raids, these massacres? Do you agree with the raids in Sham? Do you agree with the mass takfir of Sham by Ibn Abdul Wahhab and his followers? Do you agree with that? They just need to be shamed until Ibn Abdul Wahhab becomes a taboo figure, known as a Khariji deviant and disavowed. We have to basically undo the whitewashing and the propaganda, the 100 years of propaganda. We have to get back to the 19th century understanding of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, when he was known as this guy is a lunatic. This guy is a unhinged lunatic. That's where we need to get back to. That's when we can start, inshallah, getting on the right track. When we recognize that the Ummah has bigger goals like survival. Survival is the bigger goal rather than what exactly is the nature of Allah's yad. Do you take this position or are you a kafir? We need to get beyond that. So, yeah, that's the mindset of the importance of having this documentary. And I think a lot of people have recognized that. You can tell from the comments. So let's look at your super chats real quick, and then I'm going to react to some other comments. The meltdown of Wahhabis, because they're in full-blown panic mode right now. They're in full-blown panic mode because it's like the veil has been lifted. Once you see all of these quotes from primary sources, well cited, and they're all put together, it's a scandal. It's a huge scandal for Wahhabis. The average lay Wahhabi, they don't even know how to cope with this right now. They're having trouble coping with it because it's like, okay, well, what is this? Is this the guy I've been defending? Like, is this? So there's a cognitive dissonance there. Some of them will double down and say, yeah, I agree with Ibn Abdul Wahhab. The entire ummah is Dar al-Kufr. All of these people, this is all the ummah are kafir, mushrik, murtads. Ibn Abdul Wahhab was spot on. He kept it at 100. There are reactions like that. They typically are from the Daeshi side. But then you have the other side going through denial, cognitive dissonance that, no, Daniel's a liar. This is a CIA production. Daniel's just lying. These are lies. It's like, bro, you can just Google. I put the Arabic for every single quote. The Arabic is there. So you can Google the Arabic and you can find the books. You can find the books being published by Wahhabi publishers. The fans of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, the followers of Ibn Abdul Wahhab are publishing these works. Go read them. Not all of them are translated, of course. A lot of material that is in the documentary has been translated for the first time. Some of the material hasn't even been published before in any book or article. We're basically the first ones to publish and translate. Like the Ibn Sahman fatwa. You can't find the Ibn Sahman fatwa in any published book or published article. So, that's something that we found, we published, and people are shocked that, wow, the Wahhabis in World War I said that the Muslims should side with the British against the Ottomans. Yeah, that's Wahhabism. That's what Wahhabism is. So the quotes, I'm going to publish a PDF that has all of the quotes, the script, basically, the transcript of the documentary. I'm going to publish it. It's coming out in the next couple of days. I tried to have it ready for today, but it's just so long. It's over 70 pages. So I have to just clean that up, make everything presentable, and I'm going to publish a PDF. People are asking about translation. You can translate, you can distribute, you can download this documentary and publish it on your own channel. No problem. Just feel free. You can monetize it. No problem. You can translate the script, publish it as a book, and sell it. No problem. Go ahead. Just, I ask you not to change anything and just give us attribution. Say the original source where you got it from. Go ahead and distribute it. No problem. You're free to do that. So be on the lookout for that. And be on the lookout for the next parts, like in this series, because we're not done. Like, the problem with Wahhabis is that they have deluded a lot of Muslims into thinking that they represent orthodox Sunni Islam. We are the true Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. This is what they're constantly claiming. But this is a psyop. They're not actually orthodox Sunni Muslims. They're not following Imam Ahmad. They're not following Ibn Taymiyyah. They're following Ibn Abdul Wahhab, who is an ignorant Khariji narcissist, who believed that he was the only one who truly understood the meaning of La ilaha illallah. That's who they're following. So we have to just say no. Sorry, just shut up. This is what you're propagating. This is not Sunnism. This is not Hanbalism. This is not from Ibn Taymiyyah. This is from Ibn Abdul Wahhab, an 18th century deviant. That's all it is. So stop trying to bully other Muslims and tell them, oh, you don't understand Aqidah. You don't have the Aqidah of the Salaf. Just shut up. Just shut up. The grift is over. The grift is, it's done. It's done. Your doctrines on all of these issues, your doctrine on Tawheed and Shirk, that which is supposed to be your number one issue, Tawheed and Shirk, you claim to have the correct Aqidah on Tawheed and Shirk coming from the Salaf. It's over. The grift is over. It's been revealed that no, actually, your scholars that you claim to follow don't even agree on the very fundamentals of Islam. Like, is hellfire eternal or not? For example, your scholars don't agree on whether calling to jinn is shirk or not. Like, calling to jinn, calling to angels, is that shirk? Your scholars don't agree. Ibn Abdul Wahhab and Ibn Baz and some of the other Salafi scholars, they said it's shirk akbar, and you leave Islam if you raise your hands and you call to the jinn instead of Allah. This is clear-cut shirk. But then Ibn Taymiyyah said no. Imam Ahmad said no. They either said it's permissible or it's makruh. So where is the consistency? Where is the one aqidah of the Salaf? So this is all a hoax. It's all a hoax, but we've debunked it. That's why you're melting down. That's why you're having like a crisis session. And why you're trying. Some of you are flooding the comments, flooding the chat, crying. It's because the hoax is over. It's been debunked. Sorry. And who you can thank for this? You can thank the Palestinians. It's the Palestinians, the Shuhada, who have done this, who have created this situation that exposed you. You're exposed because you can't help yourself. You can't help opening your disgusting, filthy mouth because of whether it's ego, whether it's narcissism, where it's your superiority complex, where you're looking down at other Muslims, and you started attacking the Palestinians. You called them grave worshippers. You said they are deviant because they are taking aid from non-Sunnis. You began this campaign to discredit the Palestinians and to prop up who else but the biggest allies of the Zionists, the biggest Arab allies of the Zionists. You have nothing to say about them. You have nothing to say about these Gulf monarchies, but you have plenty of aqidah checking for the Palestinians. You never aqidah checked your Gulf kings and princes. You never have issued one aqidah check on them. And look at Daesh as well. It was just revealed that ISIS is helping Israel in blocking aid to Gaza. Did you see that story? ISIS is working literally with Israel. Israel is enabling ISIS to terrorize and to hijack aid that's headed into Gaza. Wow. So it doesn't matter, Medkalis, ISIS, Haddadi, they're all on the same page. They're all on the same page when it comes to attacking the Palestinians and in either directly or indirectly helping the Zionists. Palestinians exposed you. They're the ones who get all the credit. We just put the material in front of the people so the people can decide. So the Muslims can decide what to do with your rotten, filthy, disgusting trash of a movement. We're throwing it in the dustbin of history, and it's fun, actually. We're laughing at you because that's the other thing that's been revealed, is that these people are such losers. These people are such cowards, losers. They can just produce like the most cringe memes, like the most cringe responses. They run away from debate. Like, I can't get one of these idiots to agree to debate me. I'm saying, let's debate shirk. Let's debate istighatha. These are the number one issues you claim to be experts on. This is what you have dedicated 90 to 95 to 99% of your dawah to, this issue of shirk, tawheed, istighatha. Let's debate your number one issue. You're supposed to be a PhD grandmaster in shirk and istighatha. I'm just a casual. I'm just learning some of these things, some of these texts, delving into them. I'm just now getting into this. That's not my specialty. That's not my focus. My focus is liberalism, atheism, feminism. I'm just a casual. But you won't face me in a debate. You're a coward. You're disgusting. You're a laughing stock. We're all laughing at you. Like, look at someone like Farid. Look at someone like Farid. He will not agree to debate. He will not agree to debate me on shirk and istighatha. And I called him out, and it was so humiliating. He got ratioed. He said, "Oh, okay, I'll debate you, but it has to be on Wilaya Takwiniya. It has to be on Wilaya Takwiniya." Wilaya Takwiniya? Okay. Sure, I'll debate you on that. But, Wilaya Takwiniya, the whole idea of Wilaya Takwiniya is intertwined with shirk, because you're claiming it as shirk. You're claiming Wilaya Takwiniya as shirk akbar. And it's also man, why can't I say this word? Inextricably intertwined with istighatha. So we have to, if we're going to debate Wilaya Takwiniya, we have to debate these concepts as well. I'm not going to just assume your Wahhabi definition of shirk. We already have seen that your Wahhabi definition of shirk has nothing to do with the Salaf. It has to do with Ibn Abdul Wahhab. I don't accept that. We have to debate it. What does Farid say? Oh, no. We're only going to debate Wilaya Takwiniya in this clip. You said this in this clip. Look at this clip. Do you agree with this? Do you agree with what you said? So he can't even debate me on the bigger issue or the bigger concept of Wilaya Takwiniya, which, by the way, is a very expansive, nuanced, complex topic. And not all people who ascribe to Wilaya Takwiniya have the same view. And I've elaborated this, I've explained this. What does Farid say? No, I'm not going to debate you on what you've said elsewhere. Only on what you say in this clip. Only what you say in this clip. That's how scared they are to actually face me in a debate. He has to limit the debate conversation to such a narrow thing. Just your words in this 60-second clip, nothing outside of that. No explanation, no elaboration, just this 60-second clip off the top of your head where you're speaking off the cuff. Only that can be the subject of the debate. Not your explanation, not your elaboration, not your longer treatment of the issue, and not like the broader concept of tawheed and shirk and istighatha, worship, ibadah. None of that. Just this one issue, and not even the whole issue, just your 60-second clip statement on this issue. They have to limit any possible debate. It's just a way to get out of debate, basically. It's just a way to get out of the debate. They want to come on a stream and say, Daniel, you're a mushrik because you said this. You're a kafir because you said this. You're promoting shirk. You're a shirk apologist. They want to make that statement on a stream and then bounce. Without me even responding. Because if I start responding, then the whole edifice falls flat and they won't be able to say anything in response. They'll just have to play some cheap trick. They'll have to play some kind of, use some kind of tactic because they can't focus on the substance of the issue. The substance of shirk and tawheed, the substance of aqidah. They can't focus on this because all of their material on this issue is propaganda, sound bites, just emotional type of language that they have developed over 100 years to dupe and fool conservative Muslims. Like, aqidah is the most important thing, and we have the aqidah of the Salaf. Like, that's just a slogan that they spam. But if you actually get into the substance of it, it falls apart immediately. It's so easy to do, to easily dismantle their whole ideology. And that's why, you know, a documentary that just brings the quotes all in one place is so devastating. A debate would be so devastating. In such a debate, I'll present all of the statements of the scholars. I'll present statements from the Salaf, and then the whole edifice crumbles. Wahhabis cannot debate beyond the slogans, beyond the emotional sound bites that they use. As soon as it gets to substance, as soon as it gets to, okay, let's look at the details, it's over. Game over. And you can see this with Farid himself. Farid is the most dishonest type of interlocutor because people are asking him questions in the chat or in the on Twitter. They're asking him, well, what do you have to say about Ibn Abdul Wahhab? Do you agree with his mass takfir? Do you agree that he waged jihad against Sunni Muslims incorrectly? People are asking him this question. Farid never gives a response. Farid never will say, and to those questions, he just makes a joke. He just makes a joke. He doesn't answer. He avoids answering any of those types of questions. Why? Because one, he knows he can't back up anything that he says. Number two, he knows he'll get attacked. He'll get attacked either from the Daeshi Wahhabis or the Medkali Wahhabis or the Haddadi Wahhabis. So he keeps things vague on purpose. He deliberately does not answer questions on purpose. And that would be fine. That would be fine for him to keep his dumb beliefs to himself. But he's leading a campaign against me on the basis of these aqidah questions, on the basis of these aqidah issues. So how can you, on the one hand, attack me on the basis of this or that point of aqidah, and you yourself refuse to clarify? You refuse to clarify when you're asked explicitly, and you refuse to debate it. Like, isn't it clear? Like, I don't get how anyone can follow Farid. Even if I were a fan of Farid, I would say, I'm kind of dissatisfied. Like, I'm starting to question Farid. You're not actually answering any questions. It seems like you're dodging everything. It seems like all you can do is attack. But when you're asked the same questions about what you believe, you refuse to make a clear-cut statement. You just retweet people. He retweets his other Wahhabi friends, people like Jake, people like Adnan, people like whatever loser. He retweets them. But if you ask him, oh, okay, you retweeted this, so presumably you agree, he won't answer. He won't clarify. So if I were a follower of Farid, I would give him an ultimatum. I would say, look, I trust you. I think you're great. You know, it's really awesome when you wear your baseball cap backwards. Like, that's really cool. And I love that. That's amazing when you're sitting in your car. But I really need to know an answer to this question. Like, I'm actually really confused. Can you publicly clarify on this issue without making a joke, without posting a cat gif, without posting like some dumb throwaway joke or pun? Can you actually engage in the substance? It's like, actually, it's like Jordan Peterson. Like, this clip of Jordan Peterson has gone viral where he was on this Jubilee podcast, and it's like one Christian versus 20 atheists. So Jordan Peterson is the Christian, supposedly, and he's sitting and he's surrounded by 20 atheists, and one by one they come and question him and interrogate him. And one of these atheists gets there and asks Jordan Peterson straight up, "Are you Christian? Do you believe in God?" And Jordan Peterson doesn't answer. He just deflects. He says, "Well, what do you mean by believe? What do you mean by Christian?" That's exactly what Fareed does. So you can do that for a while. You can play that game for a while, and your most hardcore fans are not going to think the better of it. But after a while, it becomes obvious that you're avoiding. Like, you can't actually engage in substance because you refuse to take a position. You refuse to take a stand. So, and the hypocrisy of someone like Fareed or these other Wahhabis is that they demand this from everyone else. They aqidah test everyone else. And if you refuse to answer, or if you say that, actually, guys, my focus is not these secondary and tertiary aqidah matters. My focus is on atheism, liberalism, feminism. They don't accept that answer. They say, no, you're hiding because you're a grifter. You're trying to trick your audience into thinking that you're someone that you're not. That is what Fareed and his buddies have been saying were saying initially when I tried to avoid this whole stink. They demand that you answer. So now when we demand that they answer, suddenly Fareed just has nothing to say, nothing of substance to say, just stupid cringe jokes and cat gifs. Yeah, these people, Wahhabis, they can't debate. And you saw the portion of the documentary that this comes from the very beginning. Ibn Abdul Wahhab and his students were curb stomped in debates. Like, they go against a more knowledgeable person and they get curb stomped. And we're talking about, in this debate, in this proposed debate, I'm not claiming I'm an alim or a scholar. I'm just claiming I'm a casual. I'm a casual, and they won't even debate me, let alone an actual scholar. They can't debate an actual scholar because they get curb stomped, so they have to avoid it, and they have to make excuses of why they won't debate. The main excuse that they always use is that, oh, debating is deviance. It's actually bid'ah to debate people. Really? Munadhara is bid'ah? Didn't we see, many debates in Islamic history from the Salaf, from the Sahaba even? Even the Sahaba were debating the Cowardice. What did the Cowardice do? They stopped debating because they kept getting curb stomped. They kept getting annihilated in these debates. So now the modern day Cowardice, the Wahhabis, they also follow the same sunnah of avoiding debate. Okay, so let's look at some super chats. Could you clarify exactly what you mean by saying Jake believes scholars should be killed, or Jake endorses deviant takfirism? Yeah, I mean, if you agree with Ibn Abdul Wahhab, then you agree with deviant takfirism. And Jake has come out very loudly in defense of Ibn Abdul Wahhab and calls him Shaykh al-Islam. So that's point number one. Point number two is Jake made mass takfir of Ash'aris and Maturidis. And I tweeted, see, Jake has come out and stated that he believes that Ash'aris and Maturidis are kafir mushriks who should be executed. They should be executed once the excuse for ignorance doesn't apply. Meaning, after you've explained to an Ash'ari that Allah literally is seated on the throne, and Allah is literally above the throne, and Allah literally speaks with sounds. Once you've explained that and the Ash'ari disagrees or rejects that, then he should be killed. He should be executed because he's a murtad. So that tweet, Jake quote tweets it and says, this is not the Wahhabi position. This is the normative, traditional position of the Hanbali school, the Hanbali Athari school. And he, of course, calls himself a Hanbali Athari. So that's mass takfir of Ash'aris and Maturidis. I don't have the tweet in front of me, but you can look. I posted it, and it's in the documentary. You can see it in the documentary as well. And now he's gone back. Now Jake has gone back and said, he was speaking, actually. Jake was doing a discussion with an Ash'ari imam. And it's interesting how Jake takes a completely different tone of voice when he's speaking to someone who is more knowledgeable than him, an Ash'ari. Very respectful. Oh, what happened, Jake? Oh, what happened to all that fire and zeal? You're so angry when you're talking to yourself on the camera. You have so much passion against these Ash'aris, these deviants, these kuffar, which you've called them in the past, and even called for their execution. But when you're suddenly sitting with an Ash'ari, oh, so respectful, so generous. And then he says in the course of this discussion, this podcast, he says, I believe that Ash'aris are our brothers. They're our Muslim brothers. I think that they're deviant. They have some deviant views. Actually, I don't know if he said that they're deviants. I have to go back and watch it. But I think he just even downgraded it from they're not necessarily deviant. They have deviant views. Maybe. I have to go. Don't quote me on that. We have to go check what he literally said. But he did say, no, I view them as my brother. And people are spreading this lie that I takfir the Ash'aris. It's right in your statement. Like, you literally tweeted it. You literally put that out, and you were insisting on it for the past 6 months. What made you suddenly change your mind? And second of all, or third of all, if you're constantly saying, Jake is constantly saying that Daniel is on kufr, Daniel is upon kufr, Daniel is spreading his kufr and shirk. This is basically like a soft takfir. He's implying that I'm a kafir, mushrik, murtad. He has those kinds of words for me. And I'm an Athari. I take the Athari position on many issues. So an Ash'ari should be more upon kufr than me. Should be more upon kufr and shirk than me from your paradigm, from your understanding. But no, they're our brothers. They're our brothers. They have some deviant views, but they're our brothers, and we have to cooperate with them. So the guy doesn't understand anything. That's why he refuses to debate anyone. He refuses to debate. Many Ash'aris have challenged him to debate because he talks the talk, but he can't walk the walk. He claims to be a debater, but he doesn't debate anyone. He won't agree to debate any Ash'ari. He won't agree to debate me. That tells you all you need to know about how much Jake actually knows about these subjects. And he changes his view. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, again, it was just over a year ago that Jake was saying that, no, Ash'aris, Maturidis, Atharis, we're all Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That was his position. Explicitly, he said that. And I posted the clip. Then, within just months later, no, they're upon kufr, and they're kafir, and if they don't have an excuse, they should be executed. And that's the normative position of the Hanbali school. He tweets that. A few months later, no, they're our Muslim brothers. They're our Muslim brothers. We can join and work with them in certain circumstances. We can work with them. Cooperation. Oh wow, okay. So he changes his view on a month-to-month basis, and that's just a indication that he doesn't have a mature view or understanding. It's just he reads one thing, and then that changes his mind. He reads another thing, it changes his mind. One of his handlers says one thing, and that changes his mind. It's just all up in the air. All right, that was just one super chat. John Stewart says their only argument is you're a Shia agent or a shirk apologist. They can't pull that bull on other Sunnis who refute Wahhabi sectarians. Yeah, I'm a Shia. Why? Why am I a Shia? I'm an agent. Why? Like that. And then some of them just straight up takfir and say, no, you're a Majusi. You're like a fire worshiper. Like imagine if you go, and they do this, like this is what Wahhabis do to non-Arabs in general. They go to Indian Muslims or Bengali Muslims or Pakistani Muslims. You're just a Hindu. Go worship a cow. You're just a Hindu. They're Muslims. Like you're takfiring a Muslim and you're insulting them based on their ancestors. This is the most disgusting jahiliyyah. This is a pure sign of jahiliyyah, is a pure sign of racist, ignorant tribalism. That's like if I go to an Arab and I say, go back to worshiping Lat and Uzza. Go back, just because he's a Muslim, but because he's an Arab, I attribute to him Lat and Uzza. That's disgusting. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ has explicitly condemned, this type of behavior, but you see the Wahhabis engaging in this constantly. They discredit or they smear their opponents because, again, they can't deal with the substance. They have to just name call, even when it's jahil type of name calling. Muhammad, appreciate your super chat. Amazing documentary, mashallah. Rest in misery. Wahhabism. I knew about these marauders, but learned a lot more. Jazakallah khair, Daniel. Wa alaikum. Glad you liked it. Bilal, appreciate you as a great watch and was highly needed. Last word, thank you for your super chat, bro. Salam, I enjoyed the documentary. Just wondering, since Wahhabi is largely a pejorative word that they themselves don't use, what's the best way to determine if someone is one rather than just ignorant? Well, if someone is ignorant, you educate them, and then you see how they respond to the education that you give them. Analogous thing that happened was with Medkalism. So a lot of people didn't know what a Medkali was. Then we put out that video on Medkalism. It became the most popular English language video on Medkalism on our channel. Go check it out. The Medkali virus. And then it was very easy to identify who a Medkali is. If you are someone who says there can be no public criticism of the rulers, okay, you're a Medkali. You're like a Medkali, and then we'll explain why this is wrong, and this is like something new that you invented in the religion. And if you still insist, then okay, you deserve the Medkali label. You're a Medkali deviant. Same with Wahhabism. This is what Ibn Abdul Wahhab said. He says that he's the only one who understood La ilaha illallah. He says that this is what Tawheed is, that if you don't accept it, you're a kafir mushrik. And whoever does not also accept that you're a kafir mushrik is also a kafir mushrik. This is what Ibn Abdul Wahhab was teaching. So if you see someone like that, then you can say that they're Wahhabi. You can say that they aqidah test you. They bring up these secondary and tertiary issues. That is the calling card of a Wahhabi. If they are mass takfiring Muslims, they're Wahhabi. They're Wahhabi. No, Ibn Taymiyyah, as we point out in the documentary, Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam Ahmad, they didn't mass takfir the Muslims. They didn't mass takfir the Muslims. Even someone like Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, who took the position that if you're a ruler and you rule by other than the Sharia, that makes you a kafir. Ibn Taymiyyah takes that position. ISIS takes that position today. That's why they make mass takfir of all the Muslim rulers. But Ibn Taymiyyah didn't do takfir of the people within those lands. He didn't say that, if you're in Najd, or you're in the Hijaz, or you're in Misr, or you're in Sham, you are a kafir, mushrik, because you're under these rulers who are not implementing the Sharia. But ISIS, they do that kind of mass takfir. They do mass takfir of entire regions. And that's why they justify terrorist attacks in those countries. That's why they justify bombing masajid, bombing mosques in the Muslim world is justified on the basis of mass takfir. These are all murtads anyway. They deserve to die anyway. That's what ISIS says. They're just implementing Ibn Abdul Wahhab's chain takfir principle, auto takfir and chain takfir principle, and that's how they do mass takfir in all of these countries. Ibn Taymiyyah wasn't doing that. Ibn Taymiyyah didn't justify that. He didn't say that, oh yeah, you can go and just randomly start slaughtering the Egyptians because they're in Dar al-Kufr, because their ruler is not implementing the Sharia. So we have a video on ISIS, by the way. Like, there's an in-depth video with basically countering the ISIS claim that they're just following orthodox Islam and that their jihad is not terrorism, it's actually justified jihad. We completely debunk that nonsense, and it's also on the channel. Thanks, John Stewart. Thank you, Ibn Abdul Wahhab, for teaching the Ummah Tawheed, almost like the Ummah didn't know it already. These Shakira concerts in the land of Tawheed, though. Good point. Ozzy Kek, Salam Daniel, very good documentary. It'll stand the test of time, inshallah. May Allah have mercy on you, bro. Ameen. Barakallahu feek. Thanks for your super chat. Yim, thank you. I used to know Aqidah aspects of Wahhabism, but learned a lot from a historical perspective, going to see all citation and verify to get to know from the references you provided. Thanks. Sounds good. Yeah, that's what I encourage everyone to do. Just look up the citations, make your own videos, make your own articles, comment on this history. The documentary is like a starting point. Like, it's a starting point. It's bringing together a lot of primary source material, a lot of historical documentation, so that you can continue the fight. You can propagate this material and expand on it. We have to work together as a team. Should we takfir the Wahhabis? No, they are deviant, but they're still Muslim. Just like the Sahaba didn't takfir the Khawarij. The Khawarij were not takfired by the Sahaba. They were considered to be Ahlul Bid'ah, deviant group. I don't understand this. The fitna you causing, then don't you agree Salafi is the closest, purest Islam we have? And if they didn't do mass takfir and we're not violent, you would have no problem with them, their ideology. Yeah, if they didn't do takfir and they didn't have this doctrine to show enmity to other Muslims on the basis of secondary or tertiary aqidah issues, and if they didn't justify like this kind of jihad against the ummah because you're mass takfiring the ummah, if they didn't have these components, they would just be Hanbali Muslims. They would be Hanbali Muslims. Because they take this doctrine that, oh, if you do istighatha or you consider istighatha not to be shirk, that makes you a mushrik and you have no excuse of ignorance. So we're going to auto takfir you and we're going to chain takfir you. And therefore we can mass takfir huge regions of the ummah. If they didn't have this doctrine, then it wouldn't be problematic. It wouldn't be problematic. We wouldn't have this kind of cancer that's constantly causing division. It's exactly the takfir ideology and the way that they are dividing. They're considering aqidah issues. And there was an Ibn Taymiyyah quote that I put in the documentary. I forgot exactly which chapter it was in. But Ibn Taymiyyah points this out about the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila and other groups. The deviant groups, what they do is that they make distinctions and they elevate those distinctions to the status of aqidah. So that if you don't accept their distinctions, then they throw you out of Islam. They declare that you're a kafir. That's what the Wahhabis do. And that's what makes them deviant, even according to Ibn Taymiyyah. Like Ibn Taymiyyah's standards, rather. So, yeah, I mean, that is, if we take out the takfir doctrine, that goes a long way to rehabilitating rehabilitating Wahhabis. If we take away the takfir doctrine and we take away the idea that we have to have animosity for other Muslims just on the basis of aqidah differences, we have to have animosity where we can't even prioritize the enemies of Islam over other Muslims because of what is ikhtilaf, what is ultimately legitimate ikhtilaf. Salafis, are they the closest purest to Islam? Well, it depends. Like, that's a debate, that's a discussion, and we can have that discussion without this kind of enmity towards other Muslims, without throwing them under the bus, without allying with the enemies of Islam over them. These are things that we can do. Unfortunately, Wahhabis won't let us do that. And Salafi, like, everyone claims to be Salafi in the sense of following the Salaf. Like, can we just put away this kind of slogan? Like, everyone is a Salafi. Everyone claims to be a Salafi. In that they say that, well, the Salaf were Ash'aris. The Salaf were Maturidis. The Salaf were Atharis. The Salaf were Hanafis. The Salaf were Malikis. The Salaf were Hanbalis. The Salaf were Hanafis. That's what everyone claims. Every group claims to be Salafi, to be following the Salaf. What don't you understand about this? It's not like the Salafis, the self-declared Salafis, we're the only ones who care about following the Salaf. Everyone else, they don't care about following the Salaf. You're Hanafi, that means you care about following Abu Hanifa. So clearly my manhaj is superior to yours. My madhab is superior to yours. I follow the Salaf, you follow Abu Hanifa. Like that's the kind of low IQ reasoning that a lot of these people have. No, the Hanafis claim that Abu Hanifa is the best representation of the school of the Salaf. Do you not get that? Let's get to the substance. Let's get to put the slogans aside. And I mean, that's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask for the average Muslim. The average Muslim is not going to, barely knows like the basics of Islam, barely knows the basics of fiqh and aqidah. They're not going to be able to investigate this. They're not going to be able to get in the weeds and understand, and they rely on slogans, which is exactly why Wahhabism is so dangerous, because they feed the Wahhabi preachers, they feed their ignorant population, their ignorant followers, these slogans that are designed to generate the most animosity and hatred for other Muslims. That's why, go on Twitter right now, go into the comment sections right now, and you'll see they're takfiring Abu Hanifa. They're takfiring many of the great scholars. They're takfiring Imam Ghazali, Suyuti. It's just nonstop attacks, not only on these great scholars of Islam, of Sunni Islam, but also other Muslims online. That's what they. It's not because they have any kind of substantive knowledge. They just know a few slogans that they repeat ad nauseum, and they can't go beyond that. They can't go beyond that. They can't get to the substance. They can't. So that's why it's important to have a documentary, to have videos, to present things as simply, plainly as possible. Great work, much needed. Appreciate the super chat and your kind words. Mujahid says, you can't even have a discussion with Wahhabis unless you go past their Aqidah checkpoints. I realized a long time ago that's how they shut down debate and discussion. Yeah, they want to understand how close you are to their position, number one, and they want to know like how knowledgeable you are about the topic. And if you basically reveal that you know more about the topic than they do, then they're not going to debate you. So so if you really want to debate a Wahhabi, just pretend like you know nothing. Pretend like the whole debate about istighatha is just a brand new issue to me. I had no idea. Oh, you're right. You make a good point that the dead are not the same as the living. Wow, I didn't realize that. So pretend like you know nothing, and then agree to a debate, agree to stream it, agree to record it, and then just, have a field day. Al-Farisi, Jazakallah khair, bro. With the advent of this documentary, a decisive blow has been dealt against the largely unaddressed Wahhabi tumor. Congrats, Daniel, from your biggest supporter and proud student, Salman. Jazakallah khair, bro. Appreciate you. You're too generous, mashallah. Let's see. Why are they saying Ash'ari Maturidi rather than Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali? Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali are usually associated with schools of fiqh. They can sometimes refer to schools of Aqidah, like the Hanbali school of Aqidah. But whereas Ash'ari, Maturidi are not schools of fiqh, they're schools of Aqidah. So there's two separate categories. Do you claim that Jake explicitly supports killing or enslaving other Muslims, or are you inferring this from his positions on certain doctrines? Well, killing other Muslims, he did. Again, I tweeted that Jake is admitting about executing Ash'aris and Maturidis as apostates if they don't have an excuse of ignorance. And he said, this is the official position of the Hanbali school. So that's pretty explicit. Now, he's also defended and promoted Ibn Abdul Wahhab as Shaykh al-Islam. And these are the things that Shaykh al-Islam has actually said. Now, is Jake ignorant about Ibn Abdul Wahhab? Probably. He's ignorant about a lot of issues. So I don't know, but he should be forced to clarify. What do you think? You call Ibn Abdul Wahhab Shaykh al-Islam, then what do you think about what he says here? What he says here? What he says here? What he did here? What his students did here? What his followers did here? And this is going to be a problem for Jake, Fareed, Adnan. You saw that my conversation with Adnan. Like, Adnan couldn't answer like the most basic questions that I put to him about Wahhabism. But they should be forced to clarify and respond, because if they had been quiet and they hadn't said the name Ibn Abdul Wahhab or promoted him, then there's no reason to question them on it. But since they have been promoting him, then they should be asked. They must be asked. They must be forced to clarify. Stop dodging. Stop running away. If they run away, that's very suspicious. That should be disqualifying for them. If they haven't been disqualified about a dozen times in the past couple of months alone. Bilal, in a black mask, says, that's what Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu did too, attacking the non-payers of zakat first. You're going to call Abu Bakr a Wahhabi too? So now, this is the Daeshi, ISIS type move, and this is exactly what Ibn Abdul Wahhab argued as well in his works. It's like, what we're doing is exactly what Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu did in the Hurub al-Ridda, in the apostasy wars. We're doing exactly the same thing. Really? Really? Because what Abu Bakr did is there is a group who refused to pay zakat, and they said, we only accept this pillar of Islam when the Prophet ﷺ was alive. But we don't believe in this. We don't believe in zakat, paying the zakat to the Khalifa. We don't agree with this. So that's a pillar of Islam that they are rejecting. Do you even know? I have to ask, like, if you're a Wahhabi, because maybe you know a lot more about takfiring other Muslims than you know about the pillars of Islam. Do you know one of the pillars of Islam is zakat? If you've read the Quran, have you read that the zakat is mentioned over and over again right next to salah? that the believers are those who pray and they pay zakat. So that's, you're wanting to put Ibn Abdul Wahhab's very particular categorization and definition of Tawheed and his view of some of these practices like istighatha, you're going to elevate that to zakat? And you're going to elevate Ibn Abdul Wahhab to the position of Abu Bakr? That's how deluded and delusional you Wahhabis really are. You don't understand the priorities and the position of different things. This is your lack of understanding and your lack of wisdom. And by the way, like when it came to Abu Bakr and his decision, not all of the Sahaba agreed. Omar didn't initially agree with Abu Bakr on going to war against this group. So there was even ikhtilaf. Does Ibn Abdul Wahhab accept any kind of ikhtilaf on these issues? No, he said if you disagree that we have to go to war or that we do takfir of these mushrikeen who claim to be Muslim, then you're a kafir yourself. You're a kafir murtad yourself. JC says, a good friend and professor told me backing Hamas is a direct threat to their monarchical hegemony because they fear that such a movement will make headway in their house of cards fiefdoms. Yeah, that's exactly right. Any kind of Islamic movement, Islamist movement, is a threat to monarchical rule. Muslim Boogeyman, good to see you, bro. W documentary was worth the wait. Yeah, a long wait, right? It's like since I announced it to when it was released, it was 6 months. SubhanAllah. And people are asking, like, well, Daniel, like this was too professional. This was way too professional of a documentary. Like this is from the CIA. It's like, well, thanks for the compliment. But really, it was just me. Like it was just me working with my team, with my research team, with my video graphics team. And it takes long because I don't have a huge team. You know, we don't have a huge team. We have limited funds. So it takes time. If you want, that's the thing. If you want to produce something that is professional, is high quality, it'll take time. Or you can do it in a very fast turnaround time, but you have to spend a lot more money. You have to drop, 10, 20, 30K. Just money that we don't have. So you have to choose. Do you want to pay more, or do you want to pay what you can pay according to your budget, but it's just going to take 6 months? It's going to take a longer period of time. But as I mentioned before, I prioritize quality. I prioritize making sure it's the accurate information. Everything is presented that needs to be presented in a cohesive whole. And if it takes a little longer, that's okay. That's okay. It'll be worth it. And yeah, so anyone who says that, wow, this is a professional documentary, it must have been produced by the CIA, that's a big compliment to our video editor, mashallah. Our poor video editor who was working so hard for months, and he has to deal with me. Like, I'm annoying. I'm an annoying, nitpicking person. And I have, but maybe this should be changed. Maybe this. And sometimes I change my, opinion on something. I say, well, maybe you should include this quote here as opposed to here. And you should have this kind of graphic as opposed to another, and then I'll change my no, go back to the first one. That's annoying. That's like you're a nitpicking, annoying guy. But mashallah, my video editor, this brother, or we have multiple, but there's one primary working on most of the documentary. Another video editor was working on some of the graphics and some of the visualizations. They have to deal with my annoying demands. But they're very patient with me, alhamdulillah. May Allah reward them. They really worked hard, and I'm very proud of them, and I think the results speak for themselves. What do you think about the respect gained and osmosis of Wahhabism among other trends like Deobandis and other religious Sunnis? What is osmosis? What is that referring to? Yeah, I mean, you have other religious groups. I don't think Wahhabis are Sunnis, but the difference is Wahhabism has so much political power behind it. Like you have Wahhabism is funded by the petrodollar. That's the difference. Deobandis don't have that kind of money. Other groups like Tablighi Jamaat, they don't have that type of money. Even like Azhar doesn't have that type of money. Azhar has a long reputation. They have that legacy, but they don't have the kind of petrodollar. So Wahhabism would be nowhere without petrodollar. It would have been in the dustbin of history in the 19th century. It wouldn't have made it through the 20th century, let alone today. So yeah, there's a lot of respect gained because people don't know better. Like there's a propaganda campaign to whitewash and make Wahhabism look like this Sunni movement, but it's actually replacing Sunnism. You're replacing Sunnism with Khawarijism. That's very different. Like beyond the politics, that's substantively different than Deobandism, Tablighi Jamaat, Azhari, Azhari positions, etc. Okay, I'm gonna go through these a little bit faster. You say Wahhabism harmed Islam, but didn't Ibn Abdul Wahhab revive pure Tawheed and fight grave worship based on Quran and Sunnah? Isn't that true revival? Bro, just watch the documentary. These are slogans. You're just repeating slogans. You're repeating the propaganda. Go read what they actually is actually said. When did the concept of not criticizing the ruler come, even though it's a different reality? One is a khilafa or khalifa, which is mentioned in the hadith, and today it's man-made secular laws, and we can't say anything about how they rule. There is no hadith that says that it's haram to criticize the ruler. There's literally no hadith that says this. And the Medkali position is not that it's just haram to criticize the ruler. It's deviance. If you criticize the ruler, you are outside of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. You're a deviant. And if the ruler says that you should be executed, then the ruler has the right to do so. That's why someone like Daniel has to be executed. This is what Medkalis have called for my killing for the past 2.5 years. So there's no hadith basis for this. The Salaf and the Sahaba were criticizing the Khulafa at their time openly. By the way, and the Salatin, the sultans of their time, they're openly criticizing them, the Salaf. Okay, all of this is documented. Go watch our video on the Medkhali virus, and it will present to you all of the evidences. This kind of concept of not criticizing the ruler came in the 1990s. This is when Medkhalism emerged with Rabi' bin Hadi al-Medkhali and the Saudi state. Saudi Arabia decided to open up its country to U.S. bases, military bases, in order to go to war with Iraq in the Gulf War. So Muslims are being slaughtered, are being killed by the Americans, and it's being approved of and rubber stamped by Saudi, the Saudi monarchy. So plenty of Muslims around the world are criticizing Saudi. And then lo and behold, the religious establishment within Saudi, who are sponsored and getting paid and controlled by the Saudi monarchy, come out and say, oh, it's bid'ah. This is a bid'ah to criticize the ruler. This is deviant. Oh, okay. Wow. How convenient. How convenient that this ideology emerged. This concept of speaking against the ruler as bid'ah emerged right when the Saudis are collaborating with the United States to massacre Muslims. Wow. That's not how Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi anil Munkar is done. Not sure what this is referring to. Why do you block, mute, yet challenge to debate? I don't know what that's referring to. I haven't blocked your Wahhabi leaders. I haven't blocked them. I've invited them to debate, and they refuse. They run away. If you're talking about like spammers in the chat, yeah, they get. I want a clean chat, so our moderators are doing a good job. What are your thoughts on the Nejd Hadith? They're in the documentary. I give my thoughts. What is your Aqidah, bro? Do you love black people? Yes, I do. To be fair to them, you're like the final boss when it comes to debates, lol. It's very nice of you to say. Abu Arsalan, appreciate your super chat. Angel, really appreciate your big super chat. It's very generous of you. So the Saudis aren't helping the Palestinians, not only because of money and power from the West, but because they believe they're disbelievers, polytheists. What about the other Gulf states? What are their reasons? Are they also on the Wahhabi bandwagon? Jazakallah. You're getting it backwards. It's the theology follows the politics. The politics is what is driving the animosity towards Palestinians. Wahhabis have this kind of animosity towards Palestinians because their rulers are normalizing with Israel. The Gulf states are normalizing with Israel. They are deepening their ties economically and politically with the Zionist state. Therefore, they have to just theologically justify that. And they justify it with Wahhabism. They justify it with the doctrine of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. So first is the politics, then comes the theology. Same in World War I. Saudi was taking a deal with the British. The British were literally paying Abdulaziz ibn Saud £5,000 a month, plus a 20,000 pound loan, plus weapons, plus all of these other benefits. And that was what Abdulaziz wanted. He wanted the money. He wanted the weapons. He wanted to be recognized by the British. So then his palace scholars, the Wahhabi palace scholars, made the fatwa to justify that alliance with the British as opposed to the Ottomans. So Ibn Sahman wrote his fatwa that the Muslims should side with the British because the British are Ahlul Kitab and the Ottomans are mushriks. They're mushrik, murtads, and they're worse than Ahlul Kitab. The politics comes first, then comes the theology, the Wahhabi deviant theology. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Since YouTube takes a large share of the super chat money, is there a way to donate bigger amounts without YouTube taking 30%? Yeah, there's a link. You can contribute on MuslimSkeptic.com. Go to MuslimSkeptic.com. There's a donation or contribution tab, and you can that uses payment processors too, but they don't take as much as YouTube. And the link to that is in the description. Palestina Viva, you're funny, brother Daniel. SubhanAllah, may Allah guide us and unite us all Muslims. Ameen. Is Genius of Islam episode 4 next? Yeah, we're working on it. But again, like, you see the standards of quality that we have. So be patient, inshallah, and it'll be worth the wait, inshallah. The monarchs in the Gulf they worship have Hindu temples such as Bahrain and UAE. LOL. I wonder what MBW would say. Do you mean MBS? Berjaya care. Recite Ayatul Kursi so that Allah will send a guardian to protect us from any evildoers. Yes, always recite Ayatul Kursi after your 5 prayers and also before bed. Daniel, have you seen the new book by Yasser Qadi, Understand Salafism? He mentions Ibn Abdul Wahhab in the book. I haven't read it. I haven't read the book, so I don't have an opinion on it. What do you think about doing a documentary specifically about the betrayal of the Saudis, taking the kuffar as allies and the consequences? Also, how about doing fundraisers for future projects? Yeah, inshallah. we will continue talking about this Wahhabi issue in further videos and live streams. And then fundraisers, we will have fundraisers for our think tank that's coming up, and for Muslim Skeptic. I mean, Muslim Skeptic, I'm glad that a lot of people are asking about how they can help out and contribute. If you appreciate these kinds of in-depth documentaries, they require a lot of research. They require a lot of time to have a professional quality. It's not cheap. So if you are able to contribute just $5 a month, $10 a month, be a recurring contributor. Just go to the donation page and agree to a monthly donation, $5, $10 or more. That really helps. That really helps, because if 100 people do it, if more people do it, that allows us to continue our operations in an uninterrupted fashion and continue with high level of production quality. So if you appreciate this kind of work, then please support us, and may Allah reward you for that. Did the four imams in School of Thought not have the same aqidah? Minor differences, I assume. Salam and love from Munich. Yeah, they had the same aqidah. Yeah, I'll say that. They had the same aqidah on 90% or 95% of issues. They were the same. And the other 5 or 10% where they differed, that's not like significant enough for us to debate it or get into it, unless you want to specifically study that for your own edification, for your own benefit. Go ahead and read those books. After you study the basics of Islam, then go and delve into that. But don't use that 5 or 10% difference to come out and cause fitna, cause division, cause confusion with the Muslim masses. I'm not saying that you would do that, brother, but that's what the Wahhabis do. GG, Daniel, take a holiday, not Saudi, LOL. Yeah, I need a vacation. Please turn on captions and dubbing available in all languages. The majority of Muslims don't understand English. Is Sheikh Asim al-Hakim a Wahhabi? Thanks. Is that like a option within YouTube or what? Dubbing available in all language? Captions maybe. I'll check the settings, but I'm not sure. I'll try to make it available. Assalamu alaikum, brother. I don't have any questions. LOL. What's your favorite color? I like all the colors of the rainbow. Oh well. Now Wahhabis will accuse me of promoting LGBT if I say that. I like it, yeah. A nice dark blue is a beautiful color. A nice dark green. I like those colors. They're soothing. Thank you for the doc. Abu Suleiman, I am Quran only, but I like your stand on Palestine, fight for freedom, and I like your expose of Wahhabis. Okay, Quran only, that's deviant, brother. Try to realize that rejecting hadith is a disaster. Basir says, in your talk with the Taliban guy, he justified attack on Pakistan by TTP and you didn't punch him back on it. Isn't revolt against Muslim country haram? When he didn't justify it. He didn't justify attack on Pakistan. He said, like, that's the internal affairs of Pakistan. And he took a very non-committal approach. So there wasn't much to push back on. And I obviously don't think that the Muslims of Pakistan should be attacked by anyone. Let's see. Dawa Archive. Do you follow Saudi's global pre-predicted calendar and moon sighting, or quote-unquote moon sighting, or local moon sighting and calendar? I did. Actually, I shared a lot of material on the Saudi moon sighting and how they're able to see the moon when it's physically impossible to do so. So no, I don't follow Saudi. Local moon sighting is good. Local, and then the global moon sighting, they have their argument. They have an argument for that. But just following Saudi, like it's a bad move. Respect your courage and effort. Proud of you. Appreciate it, bro. Trooper says, I look forward to watching this documentary and sharing it with those ignorant about Wahhabism being the root cause of extremist terrorism that Western governments rely on to demonize all of Islam. The problem is not like terrorism. Like, that is a problem, but it's a symptom of a deeper problem. That's why, like, if you don't really understand the deeper issue, you look at Wahhabis, or you look at Daeshi, ISIS types, you look at Medkalis, you look at these Salafi sectarians, and you think they're all different. Like, oh, these are all different groups. Especially since they're always attacking and takfiring each other. Like, they are takfiring and refuting each other constantly. But if you understand where they're getting their ideas from, then you realize that no, they're just different branches of the same tree. Or they're different... they're sprouting from the same root. And that's Ibn Abdul Wahhab's takfirism and his ignorance of ikhtilaf in aqidah. These bootlickers love to criticize Muslims by calling them innovator, mushriks, etc., but never criticize the Gulf monarchs for having Hindu temples, which is actual shirk. Yeah, it's a big contradiction. Supposedly, you care about shirk so much that you have to denounce all of these Sunni Muslims, but you can't call out the shirk temples in your own countries, your own Gulf countries. Okay, so let's see. How long is this? Almost 2 hours. There were a bunch of comments from the documentary that I wanted to share. Maybe I'll do that. So these are comments under the documentary. The way Daniel translates the Shahada in the beginning will get him backlash already. That was a comment just 40 minutes posted after the documentary, and then the prediction came true. You had constant Wahhabi comments on, oh, you don't even know the Shahada, you don't even know what the Shahada means, takfiring me on the basis of mistranslating the Shahada. There's no God except Allah. Oh, this is Abu Jahl believed in this. So stupid. So this was a good prediction. I'm an Athari layperson, and I'm looking forward to watching this documentary in its entirety. I believe that it's much needed. I am far from being a student of Shari knowledge, but I will exert greater effort to learn the works of the Imams of the Salaf and the luminaries of the Khalaf, such as Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, in order to make sure that I'm not easily deceived by misguided sects or scholars today. May Allah guide us, grant us beneficial knowledge, and keep us firm upon the truth, to what earns us Allah's pleasure and averts us from His wrath. Ameen. So this is a big group of people that the Wahhabi documentary is supposed to reach. They're Athari, they're Salafi, but they need to be red-pilled on Wahhabism. So when I see comments like this, it's like mission accomplished. Ya Zindiq, the meaning La ilaha illallah is not there is no God but Allah. There were mushrikeen of Quraysh upon La ilaha illallah. Because they also accepted that there is no God but Allah. So imagine, he's saying that there are mushrikeen of Quraysh that are upon La ilaha illallah. And this is how stupid they are. Like, what he means to say is that they were upon the belief that there is no Rabb except Allah. That's what the mushrikeen were upon. They believed that there is only one Rabb, only one Lord. They had Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, but they did shirk in Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah because they had other gods, ilah. They were worshipping other gods instead of directing all their worship to the one Rabb, the one creator. So he's completely messing this up. Like, the Wahhabi propaganda has been so disastrous and so stupid that you make a statement like this, which is, you know, this is an ignorant person, but this is a kind of kufr statement that the mushrikeen were upon la ilaha illallah. So he's confused about actually his own, like the Wahhabi position itself. And you could say even Ibn Taymiyyah's position. Ibn Taymiyyah also had this position, but he just didn't apply the mass takfir that the Wahhabis did. But the idea is that la ilaha illallah, ilah. But this is like, as the documentary shows, there's many ayat of the Quran that refute the idea that God, the ilah, is purely an object of worship and is not sharing in lordship, is not sharing in rububiyyah. Because clearly the Quraysh, they did view their gods as having certain powers. The ability to bring victory, the ability to give wealth, rizq. They did have that. That's the big reason that they're worshiping those gods. So I'm not, you know, and Ibn Taymiyyah's view on this division on Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah and Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, fine. There's not a problem with that distinction in and of itself. The problem is when you say that the mushrikeen of the Quraysh, they had Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. That's the questionable claim, and many ulama of history have questioned that. And the documentary like presents some of this information, but it can be elaborated on even beyond that. So the mushrik Quraysh were upon la ilaha illallah. Yeah. Another brilliant Wahhabi. This is a lot more damning to Ibn Abdul Wahhab theology than I initially anticipated. A meow theology. The meow theology. Maybe that's why Fareed posts cat gifs. It's the meow theology. May Allah bless you, Akhi Daniel. I think a lot of us had this notion of just evil rulers that are keeping the ummah down and oppressed. It's not just the evil rulers, but it's the oppressive system of takfiri, Cowardicism behind them, i.e. the true face of Wahhabism. That's powering that engine that needs to be shattered and destroyed, knowing, identifying, and drawing the number one suspect anchor. That stealing the true ummatic potential is a key step to reviving a caliphate based on prophetic teaching. Good assessment, I agree. Daniel, honesty must be with honesty. I admit takfiring you approximately 43 times last week. Please accept my apologies. So it's like a full-time job, 43 times. That's like 6 times a day. Like morning, he's takfiring me more than he's doing his 5 prayers. Got to make sure to takfir Daniel. Not once, not twice. 6 times per day. At minimum. So anyway, please accept my apologies. Yeah, no problem, Akhi, no problem. Growing up as Bengali, seeing all the mystical Sufi traditions I was raised with, as someone that ignorantly has a nuanced understanding of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, this video was eye-opening to me. I'll still absolutely consider myself Salafi, Athari, based on what you was taught, but I will likely never associate myself with Ibn Abdul Wahhab again. I still am ignorant as a human, so I won't give any dawah to anyone until I'm confident of my own knowledge, but currently I can't help myself but look at Ibn Abdul Wahhab as someone having the horns of shaitan. This video might be the top 5 most significant videos I've seen in my life. Alhamdulillah. So another Athari Salafi gotten red-pilled. And that's, you know, that's plenty. If you are going to stop propagating these false Wahhabi views, you're going to pause and say, I need to learn more. I need to maybe go to different sources of knowledge. All of my sources of knowledge have been these Wahhabis, and they're coming from Medina. They're like going to Islamic University in Medina. They're coming out with this Wahhabi ideology. Maybe I need to go study with some other shuyukh. Maybe I need to go deeply into another school of thought. Do that. Do that. Go and study with other Sunni scholars, and then, you know, you'll mature. You'll understand the depth beyond just the slogans. You'll actually get into substance, and that will just make you a more knowledgeable Muslim. And inshallah, it'll draw you closer to Allah, and it'll draw you closer to the Muslim Ummah as a whole, with its diversity, with its ikhtilaf. So it's win-win-win. Don't limit yourself to these Wahhabi slogans that are ultimately meaningless. This reminds me of my first confrontation with Wahhabis in Australia. To be honest, metaphorically speaking, I got ambushed at the time, but this documentary made it clear why they were so insistent of calling my country of origin as grave worshippers. So, mass takfir. Wahhabis, that's what they do. Your entire country is a country of grave worshippers, mushriks. And we're going to saddle you with that. We're going to saddle, you have to prove to us that you're not one of those grave worshippers. So look at the tactics that the Wahhabis use, and people have noted this many times. Like, look at any new convert, especially if it's a white convert. They get swarmed by Wahhabis. Wahhabis are swarming them, telling them, "Oh, but be careful, brother. Be careful of the grave worshippers. Be careful of these Sufis. Be careful of these Ash'aris. Be careful of these Deobandis." No, you have to study with the right scholars. These are the right scholars that you have to study with. Avoid these people. Boycott these people. Oh, I saw you associating with this Sufi, or you're going to this masjid. This is a masjid of grave worshippers, so you better not go there again. And they just bully and they harass. This is what a lot of new converts face. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. You're teaching them Wahhabism instead of Islam. So many such stories, many such cases. Then there's this Wahhabi on Twitter. You've probably never heard of him, but I thought this was amusing. He was posting earlier, the next big project's coming up on my channel, how to read Ibn Taymiyyah's books. Oh, okay. How to read them in the correct way, you know, the Wahhabi way of reading Ibn Taymiyyah's books. That's the big project that he's working on. But then the Wahhabi documentary comes out. Change of plan. I will instead be crafting a response to Daniel's recent released documentary. Any and all other big projects will be taking a back seat for now. All hands on deck. Panic mode. Sound the alarm. This is a crisis. This is a crisis. Everything else, put it on hold. We don't got time. We don't got time to teach people how to read Ibn Taymiyyah's books properly. Like, that's the big project. That's the big project. just isn't that interesting? Like, you are you have a social media platform, you do research, you spend time, and you're putting out material. And the big project, your big project, how to correctly read Ibn Taymiyyah's books. Like, that's really, wow. That's really what the Ummah needs right now. Your knowledge is benefiting so many. We really need to know exactly how to read his books. Okay, fine. Like, maybe you're more academically inclined and you have a smaller academic audience and you do academic work. Okay, fine. Then stick to that. But then, oh, Daniel is criticizing Ibn Abdul Wahhab and Wahhabism. Oh, everything else on hold. Everything else is on a back seat. All the critical priorities we had, the most important projects that we had, put that on hold. There's a crisis. This really shows you the corrupt mentality of these people. Then, of course, these comments. You blood halal. You blood halal. I don't know what language this is for this username, but yeah, death threats. They're really proving how wrong I am about Wahhabism by issuing death threats. Now, there's multiple death threats. Takfir, you zindiq, you kafir, mushrik. Oh yeah, you're really proving me wrong. You're really proving that Wahhabism isn't a takfiri khariji ideology, a deviance. You're really proving that with your "you blood halal" comment with an axe emoji. With an axe emoji. So, like, they're a parody of themselves. I myself am a Salafist Wahhabi regular listener of Faris al-Hamadi. Rabbi Faris, thank you for opening my eyes. I need to rethink my position. Alhamdulillah, brother. You might be a little bit late to realizing the reality of Rabbi Faris, but better late than never. Better late than never is what I say. This is a nice comment. Tears ran down my eyes while I was watching this documentary, and step by step, the brainwashing was being undone. I need to do more research, but I feel like finally I'm awake. I haven't spoken to my father in 2 years because I accused him of being a deviant based on what I have been learning from Wahhabi sources. I was so sure I was on the right path. I thought Ottoman treason against Islam was the reason of our downfall, but I did not know Wahhabis are the direct reason for our downfall. Ya Allah, forgive me for the pain I have caused my family. Thank you so much, man. So this is a very touching comment, and it's a very common story. Like, that's what Wahhabism does. It causes division. It causes animosity for other Muslims, for your own family. Did you know that you can disagree with someone and you can even consider him to be a deviant without having this kind of war against him, this kind of animosity and enmity and aggression? Did you know that? If you're a Wahhabi, you wouldn't have known that. Because that's what Ibn Abdul Wahhab taught. So many such cases, families broken up, destroyed, because you can't have proper relations, respecting your family, respecting your father, your mother, taking care of them. You can't do that because they're not on the correct manhaj. They don't have the right aqidah. This is a disaster. Whereas what Sunnism teaches, Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah teaches, is that you respect and you love your parents. You respect, love, and serve your parents, even if they're not Muslim. Even if they're kafir, you respect them, you take care of them, you serve them. That's what Islam teaches. And we see that in the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran with his father who's literally making idols. But if you follow Wahhabism, no, this is wrong. You have to show enmity, you have to takfir, you have to boycott other Muslims, including your own father, including your own mother, including your brother, your sister, your children. This is a sick, disgusting mentality. And it has nothing to do with Orthodox Islam or Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Many such cases. Many such cases. You might have a family member who does have deviant beliefs. Does that mean you cut them off? No. Does that mean you treat them with enmity? No. No, you treat them in a way so that you can help them, so you can give them nasiha, you can encourage them to reform, you do islah. You do islah, you try to reform them to come to the straight path. And you do that with gentleness, with care, with compassion. That's what you do. That's your approach on an individual one-on-one basis with people, with your family. I've always advocated for that. I've always been very clear that that's the approach. So then when it comes to publicly arguing against the biggest threats to the iman of Muslims, then you take the tone that's necessary. You take the approach that's necessary. When it comes to Wahhabism, for example, the danger that they're posing, then yeah, of course, we're going to be reciprocating. They're harsh. They're doing takfir. Okay, we'll reciprocate. We'll reciprocate. The liberals, they are attacking conservative Islam. They're saying that the conservative Muslims are extremists. They're saying that Orthodox Sunnism, Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, are extremists, misogynists. So we respond, and we call them, compassionate imams for their distortion of the deen. We reciprocate. It's a reciprocal approach. I'm not Wahhabi, but I think Daniel is one of the 30 Dajjals. The way this guy is dividing Muslims when his goal was unity. First Medkalis, quote unquote, now Wahhabis, quote unquote. Later he will criticize Salafis, calling to a new kind of Islam where Shia and his family won't go to hell. Oh, these people are sick. So if you call out and you criticize the Wahhabis for their takfiri, khariji ideology, then you're causing division. That's like the biggest, 5D chess move that these Wahhabis have pulled. Like, oh, Daniel claims that he wants unity and allyship and alliance, but then he criticizes us. He's a hypocrite. Yeah, I'm criticizing you for being enemies of the ummah, for causing division and fitan in the ummah. That's like someone saying, like, I'm going to come and slit your throat. I'm going to come and kill you. Someone says that, and then you go and pick up a baseball bat and you say, or a weapon, and you say, no, I'm not going to let you kill me. I'm not going to let you slit my throat. And then the other person is saying, oh, okay, so now you're against, or now you're for violence. You picked up a baseball bat. That's very violent, you hypocrite. I'm trying to cut your throat and you want to defend yourself with a baseball bat? What a hypocrite you are. That's hypocrisy. Wahhabi 1 is on correct manhaj. No need to debate with murtadeen. You only deserve death. Learn English, bro. Learn English if you're going to write comments in English. So another death threat. Okay, so these are some fun comments, fun commentary from our friendly neighborhood Wahhabis. That's what the Ummah has had to deal with. It's constant death threats. All right, guys. Appreciate the super chats. Ridwan says, lots of people in West Africa follow the Tijaniya tariqa. I have never seen anyone do tawaf or sujud to graves there. The lies are just too much. Yeah, it's just caricatures. Like, there are people who do these innovative practices with graves, but is this really, like, what percentage of Muslims are doing this? Like, I've maybe can count on my hand in my whole life Muslims who have actually done something like this. 5 people max. What percentage of Muslims are actually doing this? The only reason it becomes a huge problem is because of the chain takfir principle. Because it's not only if you've actually done any kind of grave worship practices or grave veneration, let's say, but also if you don't automatically takfir anyone who does it, then you are also a kafir. So that's how the numbers are inflated. That's like Ben Shapiro's approach, or the Zionist approach to ISIS. They say that, well, we know that not every Muslim is a part of ISIS. It's only a small percentage. But a large percentage of Muslims believe in the Sharia, which is what ISIS also believes in. So that means that all these Muslims, the majority, are basically following the ideology of ISIS. Therefore, they're legitimate targets for war, for killing, or whatever. Surveillance, countering violent extremism. That's the whole basis for CVE policies, prevent, is that kind of expansive approach. Even if you explicitly reject ISIS, you still believe in the Sharia, which is what ISIS believes in. So the Wahhabis have a similar type of mentality. The actual percentage of people that would be doing grave veneration is very, very small. You might, like this brother has said, he hasn't seen anyone actually do it in West Africa. Or maybe you're in India or Pakistan or Central Asia, wherever, Southeast Asia. You haven't actually seen anyone do it. But the Wahhabis say that, no, the problem is that these people who do grave veneration, they have the same aqidah as the Ash'aris and the Maturidis. Therefore, they're all part of the problem. And that's why this is all Darul Kufr. That's why these are all deviants. They need to study Kitab al-Tawheed, and we should boycott them and have enmity towards them until they accept Kitab al-Tawheed and Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Have a look at Sheikh Nuruddin and Jake's recent video on Islam Answers. Jake seems to claim he doesn't takfir Ash'aris. Sheikh Nuruddin is a gem, but Jake was not sincere in this discussion with him. Yeah, I commented on this already. Like, Jake walked back. He claimed that he didn't takfir Ash'aris. Where could you ever get the idea that I takfir Ash'aris? Maybe it's your explicit words, your explicit written words. That's where we got the idea. So he kind of walks back. He whitewashes his own history, very recent history. Thank you, Isa. Alhamdulillah, what an excellent video. Appreciate it. Ahmed, appreciate it. I became more careful with takfir after reading Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Brother Daniel, can you make a list of Wahhabi scholars, imams, da'i, social media personalities, etc., so that the Muslims and non-Muslims can benefit? I would hate to see new converts like Sneeko, Sunny, Faz, Bobby's perspective, etc. Jazakallah. Yeah, like I said, you have a lot of Wahhabis who swarm the new converts, and that happened with Sneeko. That happened with Andrew Tate. Immediately, Rabbi Ferris goes to Andrew Tate and starts taking photo ops. Like, this is their whole strategy. So, I mean, a list, I give you the tool so that you can recognize it yourself. The most immediate indication is if they praise Ibn Abdul Wahhab. And if they have a problem with the Wahhabi documentary, then that's another sign. How come you're such an expert but still can't speak Arabic? I can't speak Arabic? Interesting. Any book recommendations on purifying the heart? Book recommendations. I think one of the best books is the Arba'in of Imam Nawawi for this purpose. Like, just reading the hadith that Imam Nawawi has covered. But it's not sufficient to just read it by yourself. So I would just take a class on Al-Arba'in of Imam Nawawi with a qualified teacher, non-Wahhabi teacher. And because I'm thinking, like, what is the most kind of rejuvenating, spiritually rejuvenating class that I ever took? And it was a class on the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi. But even though it's not technically considered a book of purifying the heart, but so many of the hadith collected by Imam Nawawi is about the internal aspects of Islam. That's why I would recommend it. Wallah, brother, one of the best documentaries, mashallah. Appreciate it. Thoughts about Muslim Brotherhood? Again, like, there are critiques of Ikhwan, and they do have, like, some deviant views. But what they're driving towards is Islamic sovereignty, Muslims to be sovereign, Muslim societies based on Islam, laws based on Islam. Like, that's a move in the right direction. So we should support the good that they are doing, and the things that are incorrect, then we help them understand, and we correct them, and we help them so that they're better. Like, that's the approach. We don't just say, oh, these are kuffar, these are deviants that we need to oppose and we need to put them in prison. That's the approach that has been used to completely demonize the Palestinians, because they say the Palestinians have a Hamas government that is Ikhwani, therefore we oppose the Palestinians and we don't really care what Israel does to them. That's what Wahhabis say. In reality, we should just support the good that they do, and if there's an opportunity, once we are in a situation where we're not getting genocided, then we can talk about, like, okay, well, is this the correct position or is this correct position? My critique of, like, what's deviant is that they just accept too much of the secular paradigm. They accept too much of liberal secularism, and they're too willing to negate aspects of the Sharia based on maslaha reasoning. And I've had previous live streams discussing this. They are just reformist in some of their fiqh opinions and their understanding of Islamic rule. For example, some of them will prefer democracy or promote secular democracy, but just Islam-flavored secular democracy over Khilafah. This is not something that's represented in Orthodox Islam. So we criticize that. We say that this is wrong, but right now we're getting genocided. We're getting slaughtered, massacred. Our lands are getting occupied. Islam is being attacked from all fronts. We have a bigger priority right now. We have a bigger priority to address. Terrorists also quote Ibn Taymiyyah for their views. You're doing a lot of injustices to Meow and equating him to his followers who developed Ta'assub. I don't get the logic of this. So I didn't criticize people for quoting Meow. I was criticizing Meow directly according to his own words. So what's the equivalence here? And Ibn Taymiyyah didn't have these kinds of mastic theory views of Meow. To be fair, is there a possible reconciliation between Meow's definition of shirk and calling upon jinns and angels, i.e. that only types of istighatha are shirk, only those that are to seek nearness? Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of gymnastics that Wahhabis are now engaged in, because they weren't aware that there was this contradiction between Ibn Abdul Wahhab and Ibn Taymiyyah and Imam Ahmad. Ibn Abdul Wahhab was not aware that Ibn Taymiyyah allowed calling to jinn and calling to angels, and Imam Ahmad allowed this. They weren't aware of that. So he wasn't aware of that. So Ibn Abdul Wahhab says, no, this is shirk akbar. Clear-cut shirk akbar. No qualification, no udhr bil jahal or any other excuse. Is clear-cut shirk. And you're a kafir mushrik if you engage in this. He wasn't aware that Imam Ahmad had this position and Ibn Taymiyyah had this position. And that's why his brother Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab was so shocked that he doesn't know that what is actually Ibn Taymiyyah's view on this. So now you have these Wahhabis who are trying to reconcile. No. Ibn Taymiyyah doesn't mean that you can just call to jinn no matter what. It has to be according to certain qualifications and considerations. And Ibn Abdul Wahhab also agrees with this. Oh, really? Show me the proof. Show me the proof where Ibn Abdul Wahhab says that in certain conditions you can call to the jinn. Show me one quote like that and I'll retract. Show me one quote where Ibn Abdul Wahhab says, yes, you can call to the jinn for your needs as long as that jinn is present in front of you. Show me that quote. And then I will, modify my views and issue a clarification or issue a correction. But there isn't such a quote. So And this is a clear contradiction. According to Ibn Abdul Wahhab standards, Ibn Taymiyyah and Imam Ahmed were kafir mushriks. There's no way out of that. There is no possible reconciliation. And if you start saying that, no, it depends on your intention. Are you seeking nearness or not? Again, Ibn Abdul Wahhab doesn't put this condition. He doesn't qualify and say that, oh, you can do istighatha as long as you have the correct intention. As long as you're not seeking nearness to the dead person or to the jinn or whatever. Like, those kinds of qualifications aren't found in his work, and they're not found in what Wahhabis have been saying publicly for decades. So it's just a cope. It's just a way to get out of the contradiction. All right, guys. I've been worn down. It's 2.5 hours. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of your super chats. Meow hobbies. Anything good about Meow? Well, after you reconcile or come to terms with the fact that he's massacring Muslims, he is ordering the assassination of muftis and scholars in Mecca, and after you've fully, grappled with all of these killings and looting and raiding of Meow, then maybe you'll get some time to reflect on whether he had some good qualities. No. All right, guys. Appreciate all of you in the super chat. Again, if you haven't watched the documentary, make sure to go and watch it, comment on it. Feel free to clip it. Feel free to spread it. Feel free to send it to family and friends. You can also expect to see the full transcript, which will be about a 75-page PDF. It's going to be published this week, inshallah. You can download it and get all the Arabic quotes, get all the information that is presented in the documentary. But yeah, let's just keep spreading the documentary. It's already gone viral. People are talking about it, alhamdulillah. And I think it'll be a good reference point for Muslims in the future who they hear about Wahhabis, they hear about Ibn Abdul Wahhab, they hear about Kitab al-Tawheed, but they don't know what it's all about, what it's really about. You can just send them to this documentary for them to get like a full-blown treatment. Because it's 3.5 hours. That's longer than some of these online webinars, like courses that people sell. This is a free course, essentially. A free course on Wahhabism, covers history, covers Aqidah, covers the intellectual evolution. So I hope you appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you who have watched and contributed. If you found this material beneficial, consider contributing to MuslimSkeptic. Any kind of donation really helps our efforts with research, with video production, with putting out this material that I think is needed, very important and very needed. Okay. Barakallahu feekum. Inshallah, we'll have episodes of Haqiqatjou coming up this week. So be on the lookout for announcements for that. And that's all I have for today. So inshallah, we will see you on the next stream. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.